In addition to being on Zoom, we're also being videoed by the town of Lunenburg's access channel. So, our first item on the agenda this evening is to hold our public hearing, and then we'll go into our normal regular business for the APDC. The Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District Commission is holding a public hearing to hear and review an application for a certificate to alter for exterior repairs, window replacement, and handicap accessibility modifications of the Ritter Memorial Building, which is located at 960 Massachusetts Avenue, Lunenburg, Massachusetts, under the Code of Town of Lunenburg, Chapter 113, Architectural Preservation District. The owner applicant is the Town of Lunenburg, represented by the Select Board here in Lunenburg. Materials were available for reviewing in the planning office since our last meeting on the 8th of August. Actually, I think there was some modification done to those materials. Hopefully, the slight changes did get to Adam Burney and others. So the first thing I'd like to do is just to kind of ask for the applicant to go over the window sample and the color chart, since we didn't have those at our last meeting.
Did you actually get the color chart, Arlen?
I didn't bring it because I didn't think we were talking about color.
Oh, we have the window sample here.
It's the window. Scan it up.
Can you kind of give us a drive-through with
Yeah, here's the shop drawings from Pella.
okay.
So they can make the grills that we were talking about that you didn't see before.
They didn't have a sample of the solid trim.
Forget the screen part, it doesn't have a screen. But see, it's aluminum clad. It's got historic bevel profiles. Should go behind the screen.
Yes, open it from the inside there.
I'm gonna present that one, yeah. There we go. So we got the beveled profile representing the putty glaze. It's aluminum clad wood construction, wood on the inside. Full, looks like a real strip divided light, so you can't, not just applied, it's got a true bar in between. So anyone driving by from the street is not going to see anything fake.
So how will the transom with the individual lights, what will that look like? Will it also be a raised bevel as you have for this window?
Well, yeah, it's not our window. This is their samples they hand out for every job. So ours are going to be, as you can see in the pictures, the double hung part is not going to have grills in it.
Right.
Grills will be in the transom. This exact type of grill
Will be in the transom. So it'll be a 3x5 grill pattern. I think that's what it's. Actually, this is this one is actually 7. Looks like 7.
It's a thinner window that has floors.
Yeah, it goes based off the thickness of the windows.
Okay.
It's the same pattern that was on the historic original drawings for the building.
And so that type of frame and the transom above, how will the transom above be attached to the window? Will it be a separate unit, or will it be constructed the same way?
Factory models going to come up with a picture.
So this is going to be one unit then, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. You don't have the color chart?
No, we don't, no.
Okay. All right. Okey doke. Any other comments from the town of Lunenburg regarding the windows?
No, I mean,
This is the hard copies of what you should already have already. But
Yeah.
the biggest thing for the town is that the windows will be operable now, and the energy savings. We had the Monty Tech students came through and did an energy audit of the building.
So,
Again, just reiterate that we're trying to get back to the original design intent of the building with the new pattern, with having the windows, the transoms above and the non-divided lights on the bottom. So just trying to get back to be more accurate with the design intent of the building.
It also makes the windows significantly easier to open because the sashes are smaller at that point than what we have now upstairs.
Okay, is there any comments from the public, either online or in person? I notice we have Anna with us this afternoon or this evening. Any comments, Anna?
Yeah, so I watched so on the Lockers on Main Street, I am a resident of the ABD. And I watched the last meeting of the ABDC. I saw the discussions. I have seen some of the drawings. And I'm pleased that, we are doing what we can to maintain the building with the character that it was, with the upgrades of the windows. That sets the tone for other residents in town, in the district, to do the same. Going back to when this bylaw was created, I wasn't very keen to the bylaw because where I live went from being a residential zone to a commercial zone, and that can be something negative to a household. At the time, there was a brand new construction next to my house, and my fear is that new construction could be turned into commercial, and it will definitely affect my property. So I do appreciate the APDC's work on trying to maintain the architectural characteristic of the town center. And that's the part that I value, is having the APDC exist as a protection for the current residents. So I like seeing this project going forward. I appreciate the town putting the time and making the investment for it. That's why I come.
Thank you, Anna. I see no hands raised on the Zoom screen, so I'll ask if there's any comments from the commissioners. William? Nathan?
No, I think it looks, everything that's been presented looks really amazing. So, thanks.
Richard?
No comment at this time.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. First, did the town ever consider requesting an administrative review with the APDC?
They may have. My understanding, there were comments had before my time with the town. And talking with the town manager, it was recommended to me that we go with this style of meeting, so that's what we did.
So there was not a request for an administrative review. That didn't come forward from the town.
Not in my time, no.
Okay. Was there any physical evaluation of the window operation besides thermal imaging done? Like, did you try windows? Did you see how they operated? I know that there's been a lot of concern about, the building being cold in the wintertime. And certainly windows are a heat loss for, all different types of buildings. But was there anything done with perhaps insulating other parts of the building, since that was deemed to be one of the drivers for replacing the windows?
So a couple things. There's one or two other spots in the building that we had significant heat loss. It's actually the women's bathroom. There's a access hatch up there that we are insulating.
Okay.
Same thing with the hatch in the building department. And then as far as operability, most of the ones on this level don't actually open more than a few inches. They hit the ceiling. So any effort to repair that would have been involved ripping out the ceilings. And as I'm sure you can guess, everything in the building is typically hot. So we try to avoid that. The windows upstairs, most of them operate, but they're difficult to close. If you go up and look at the window above this one, the top sash is hung down, and the girl that works in the office can't close it. Every time she wants it closed all the way, and there's a storm on it, but every time it wants to be closed, I have to go up and close it for her. They're too large and unwieldy. I can actually feel the wind blow through the window in my office, even with the storms on it. Windy day, the papers blow off my desk.
You know, one of the things that I'm concerned about, is that we're going to end up with a building that's going to look very uniform and very much homogenized, with both windows now and paint colors matching old versus new. Did you look at the Department of Interior's Historic Preservation Standards for rehabilitation and contemplate there being, some differentiation between the old historic building known as the Ritter Library versus the addition that was put on the building in 1963?
I would say the variation is still quite evident in the fact that one has a slate roof, one has an asphalt roof, one has extremely ornate brickwork, the other one is quite austere. The windows were already the same unit size. They're the same now in pattern, so keeping them, I wouldn't say it's more homogenized than before. I feel it's keeping in the same tune.
This may sound like a wild question, but was there any consideration given to removing the paint from the Ritter Library building and restoring it back to what it was before the addition was added in 1963?
It was briefly discussed, and the thought was the cost prohibitive and getting the townspeople on board for ponying up the money for that, to put it bluntly. I think it would look fantastic if it did, but I think it's a non-starter with the townsfolk, something that has to go to town meeting and get voted on for that kind of money. I don't think anyone has the appetite for it, especially this year, raising taxes.
I also think it would look fantastic too, and I've dreamed about it myself, but I'm not even sure what type of condition that brick is in underneath the paint that's there now. If you look at the area by the back fire escape where some of the paint has come off, that masonry is in quite poor condition. So I don't know if we strip that off, who knows what's under there.
But there wasn't any evaluation of that, like life cycle cost evaluation. It just pains me when I see brick get painted or stone get painted.
I agree 100%.
Because from that point on, now you got a constant and recurring maintenance issue. And, if we were really truly trying to historically preserve this building, you wouldn't want to set it up for paint every, 10 years. Do you have any idea when this building was last painted? Did any of that information come forward as part of the evaluation of the project?
Probably 1960. I don't know.
Unfortunately, being a new department, a lot of the files were tough to find. We've searched through attics and all kinds of places, and there wasn't great record keeping done There wasn't great record keeping done on any of the buildings in town. It's been quite the challenge for all of them, and there's no record whatsoever. I'm sure someone somewhere in town has some pictures of it, but
what do you envision in terms of prep for the building, and to prep removing old paint, making sure that we don't have paint peeling? What are the details? What is the contractor going to be required to do to ensure that we have a good surface for new paint to adhere to? And how much different would that be in terms of removing the paint and preserving the brick the way it was, or the sandstone the way it was? That's another thing. Richard, do you know whether there's actually brick underneath here or some sort of a sandstone?
The brownstone accents, the brick is the body, the trim,
Or sandstone?
or brownstone, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, they said fieldstone in the book.
No, it's brownstone, sandstone.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So do you?
To take the paint off the whole building, you'd have to chemically remove it. You can't use tools or abrasives on historic masonry, right? They destroy it. So smearing the whole building with chemicals.
It's not really practical, and you have the environmental factor, you have to get rid of the paint and everything. Once it's painted, it's a shame, but...
It is such a shame that this building got painted.
Such a 1960.
What?
Should have said that in 1960.
Yeah, that stuff all happened, the paint everything white movement that's colonial America after 1950. After World War II, they started doing that.
Okay. All right, any more questions or comments from the commission? Do I have a motion to approve the certificate to alter for the exterior repairs?
I submit the motion to approve the certificate to alter.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. There's no further questions. All those in favor say aye.
Let's have some discussion first.
Okay, all right.
I think that Damon has done a good job with finding where to put this building. Bringing the look of the windows back to the original. I mean, that's all what can you do?
Right.
You could keep the colonial windows, but those weren't proper to begin with, so. And the functionality and the practicality of putting them in makes sense. And the brick, that whole building is going to be painted again?
I believe at the moment we just had touch up on it.
Touch it?
The building will need to at some point, but in an effort to save costs.
Talking about the addition?
I think we only had touch up on the areas that were peeling and deteriorating paint bugs.
For both the new and the old?
I thought we were painting the whole thing.
Oh, are we? Fantastic.
That's what I thought.
I love it. Sorry, I have so many projects going in my head. I think painting the whole thing is great.
And then the railing in the front, what happens with that? Remind me.
So right now he's showing, is it a wrought iron or is it?
Yeah, we need new wrought iron railings. The one right now is, it's gonna be a code violation, but it's not tall enough and the holes between the balustrades are too large, so. I think the recommendation last meeting was that the board would like to see a wrought iron black rail there.
What happens with the detail around the circular window over the entry?
Same thing, they'll have to paint it, if there's any shipping paint, anything like that, they'll have to.
That's made of wood?
I honestly thought it was a brownstone detail myself, but
Yeah,
tough to get up there and tap on it.
Yeah, I thought that was too originally. Yeah, it looks like it's brickwork, goes all the way up the gable.
Yeah.
Nice. Are there slate repairs being made?
Yes,
Slate, and there's some flashing that's fallen off.
yes, the relining gutters, doing the flashing.
Is the chimney being rebuilt or just repaired?
Yes, we didn't change the scope from the last presentation. The other previous architect did, but I believe the existing brick chimney, remove concrete cap and remove exterior white of brick from chimney top to base flashing, field verify remaining brick and chimney liner, reconstruct with brick that matches exactly appearance of existing brick with mortar that matches exactly profile of existing mortar, prepare and paint brick. Provide zinc coated copper cap turned down over the edge of brick 3 inches, to drip edge hooked under continuous cleat, and turned up and down into the flue liners, solder joints watertight to shed water.
Nice. So the entryway on the parking lot, that's going to be built as presented. You've altered it from the original plan.
Yeah, the last go around that you guys approved, they only gave you exposed steel tube columns. We're going to box those out with some trim that's gonna look and feel more in tune with the center town. They also gave you we're gonna move the stone retaining wall out a little bit to encapsulate one of those legs, because they gave you 3 different length legs before, where one was all the way down to parking lot level and the other 3 were up at planter level, so that was gonna look a little silly.
So the front stone wall, that's going to be new?
They got the same brick, they're gonna rebuild it out of this brick, or same stone.
Yeah. I think that's all the questions I have.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second, and we've answered questions. All those in favor of approving the certificate to alter, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, so the certificate to alter has been approved. And at this point, our public hearing is now closed, and we will move into our regular APDC monthly agenda for the month of September. And you guys are free to go, or you can stay if you want.
Try and put my son to bed, if he's not already.
This is when the best stuff happens.
Do you guys issue a certificate, or is just a,
We'll sign a certificate to alter. I'll do that. I'm gonna download a copy of the form from the emails that you sent, and then I think it goes to where? To the
town clerk, I
to
thought?
either, I know it's gotta go back to Ellen Griffin.
Yeah, it goes
To the town clerk.
to
And then-
the planning office, and then they'll
Make sure that Ellen gets a copy and the building inspector gets a
they'll
copy.
notify you that it's a go.
Fantastic. Still got some work to get it ready for bed anyway. so.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Great, yeah, thank you.
All right. So, Nathan, were you able to do meeting minutes for our 8 August meeting?
No, I do not have those. Yeah, so I apologize.
Okay.
I don't even think I took very good ones. I would have to go through and look at get the transcription on the YouTube.
Well, there was a lot of conversation about whether the application was complete as submitted versus what we discussed when we were here with them on the 8th of August. You know, I did not consider the application complete, and I'm glad that we deemed it not to be. That was one of the things that we did agree to at the meeting on the 8th of August. But
Deemed it not to be what?
it was, the application as submitted in July was not complete. We deemed it complete at the 8 August meeting.
Yes.
I bring that up only to say that had we deemed it, had it been deemed to be complete when it was submitted on the 27th of July, we would have had to have this public hearing at a different time, which goes back to one of the reasons why we wanted to change the preservation bylaw with regards to the 45 days versus a final decision in 90 days. I think that's still an issue, but fortunately, you know, by us reviewing the materials on the 8th, we were able to have our public hearing during our regularly scheduled meeting for September, which I think is advantageous for us.
It is.
Okay. I did not go to check to see if there was any correspondence. I did check a couple weeks ago. There wasn't anything in there, but I haven't gone back since, so I'll go back and look again. And then the old business master plan input. I talked to Adam Burney about where the town was with regards to master planning activities. And apparently they've created a steering committee, and the steering committee is made up of different individuals and is guiding the master planning process. But at the time that he and I spoke, which was shortly after our 8 August meeting, because I was preparing to go out of town, he indicated to me that no schedules for meetings with the master planning company, the consultancy, have been scheduled yet. He thought that there would be some meetings scheduled in September. And he says, of course, you know, members of the APDC can participate in any of those meetings because they will be public meetings. But I think it's really critical for us to have some input, you know, into the process for planning purposes. And, you know, so I'm going to kind of continue to monitor that so that we can be sure to have a schedule. And if I can't make it, maybe to ask one of you all to attend those planning meetings. I think that for me, one of the requirements that should come out of the master planning process is to affirm, you know, the town's desire to continue to do historic preservation in the APD. And, you know, and that includes some other town buildings like TC Passios, like Town Hall, you know, the Brooks Building, And I want to make sure that, that there is some sort of statement or some sort of a plan that recognizes those historic assets and the need to preserve them, for the future, for at least wise for the next 10 years, which I think is the scope of the plan. So,
Especially that they don't start making these hard plans for something that violates one of our
right.
rules.
Right.
We can at least be there and be like, oh, we gotta talk about this a little more.
Yeah, yeah. So, any comments about the planning process? I mean, I think I love a plan. It's amazing if you put down in writing what you want to do, how much better off you are in actually accomplishing those things that get stated as kind of planning documents, turn into firm, concise actions that the town can be proud of. So. I think that we've had discussions about the master planning process in the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee meetings that I participated in, and the rep from the planning board has affirmed, he says, if we had done a really good job of keeping our plan up to date, we wouldn't have a committee. We would know what we're going to do with town hall, what we're going to do with the Ritter building. These would be things that are all, discussed and spoken. So, I think that's why it's really key. I look at the TC Passios building as being a prime candidate for town involvement. It has a great location. In the conversations that we've had for the 300th anniversary committee, which I'm also participating in, people talk about Memorial Drive as being a place for town activities for the 300th anniversary. And in fact, at our last, we've had 2 meetings. We have another meeting scheduled for next Monday, the 18th of September. But and those were unofficial meetings because we didn't post agendas. But the discussion that we had at the most recent one is the shortage of places to actually do events associated with the 300th anniversary. And everyone was kind of saying, well, Memorial Drive, we could do this on Memorial Drive, we could do that on Memorial Drive. And I think that having TC Passios, be there as part of a functioning element of Memorial Drive as a corridor for the town is, I think, really important. And it'll be interesting to see how our Lunenburg 300th Anniversary Committee events take place. We're talking about having fireworks. We're talking about having a bonfire. These are all things that were done in previous celebrations, the 250th and the 275th. And what's interesting is because the way the new high school and middle school have been built, there's a lot less turf available for some of those activities. So my thoughts are that we should have a plan that preserves as much of the property around Memorial Drive for town activities. So I think it's a natural corridor for doing things. Currently, we do ton concerts, in that space next to the playground, between the playground and the TC Passios. So,
Yeah, perfect.
all right. So,
Yeah, so we taking comments on that, or?
yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so from a historical, so they have a steering committee and there's a planning board rep,
Adam didn't tell me who was all on the steering committee,
Okay.
so I don't know what, Nathan.
Okay, as far as the Passios, as far as those buildings go, obviously there'd be something to talk about. So what's the age range on the APD bylaw? Is it
75.
75? And when was Passios constructed?
Not that old.
So
60.
60, yeah.
Actually, I think it was in the 50s.
50s?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not 70, it doesn't fit as a historic building.
Yeah. And I personally so putting aside, master planning process would obviously look at a lot of the kind of things you were just talking about. From an APDC standpoint, I don't see the Passios as like a critical thing to preserve. If a better plan came along to do something that had more value to the town, there's other competing goals there in terms of the goals of the village district bylaw that are, I think came out of a previous master plan and sort of spoken to in the preamble to the village district bylaw. So just want to get that out there, just not to ram it to anyone's throats, but just so folks can think about it. If that comes up and we had to take a position on it, like, that would be a conversation to have. And so A, it's not in the age range to protect, and B, there was a compelling vision for something there that a lot of people felt did meet the town's needs. I certainly wouldn't want to die on the hill of preserving the TC Patios get in the way, basically.
What's interesting about TC Patios is that, there's a couple of components in the building that people really like to use, namely the cafeteria and the gym.
Yeah, no, I don't dispute the value,
Yeah.
and I assume that if the town made a proposal that gained traction to replace it, I'm hoping that, some of those uses might be replaced in whatever that thing was. So, yeah, no, I think you're right on about that.
Yeah. Okay, I have placed a call for information about.
Sorry, Brooks House, though. Oh, sorry, are we moving?
No, go ahead. Let's talk about Brooks House.
Brooks House, my personal feeling is definitely in our mandate. I think it's an interesting question. Damon, in fact, who presented this plan, had a beautiful thing he just whipped up in terms of, how that could be repurposed for, commercial use or residential use. I do think, my feeling is I wouldn't want to lately see that building be demolished just because it does fit their thing. I think we could talk about, if that space were needed for something else, I think we could entertain a historic practice in Lunenburg of moving structures, which is, I think the Eagle House was a transport, or town hall was a transport, you know what I mean? But, because there's some talk about that particular parcel. Like if we were able to relocate that building to a place where it would be protected by covenant or by bylaw, then I think that could be an option, but I think that building is worthy of attention in a way I don't think the Patios necessarily is. If that makes sense. I just want to wrap up on that.
What's interesting, Nathan, is that while the Patios is not within our guidelines for the bylaw because of its age, it has, I think in my mind, a far greater reason because of how it's being used to be saved versus the Brooks, which is, I think, like when I look at the Brooks house, I see a house that, is going to be tough to move. And I also see it as a house that's going to be tough to be used the way some of the people, like on the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee, they were talking about putting the preschool that's in TC Patios into the Brooks house. And unfortunately, that house isn't designed for preschool activities. And that creates all kinds of, code issues. So we have one building, which while it's not within, the guidelines for us to be, to rule on, it's actually, that's a building that really should seek to see used in the future. And I think that there's been, some pretty strong feelings by the members of the Lunenburg Municipal Design Committee to see those critical parts of TC Patios, preserved. And then eventually, if that happens through this cycle, it will be within our guidelines, a few years down the road because of the age that it is currently. And, so it's kind of sad that the building that's not within our guidelines has some great attributes. The building that is within our guidelines has some really negative attributes that'll make it difficult for it to be preserved. So we'll see.
Except it's a contributing property.
Yeah, it is. I'm just saying from a practical perspective, it'd be a whole lot easier to keep pieces of TC Patios around than it is going to be to keep the Brooks house around. I wish that the town had taken, they should have, with the feverish housing activity that was taking place in 19, 20, 21, I wish that they had put the house up for sale to a developer with the provision that he turn it into a house again and, and bring it back to what it was initially, a house. But I think it's going to be much more difficult to do in today's current environment.
I mean, housing market's pretty strong. I mean, I think given, even our bylaw does allow for a lot of pretty much unlimited flexibility in the interior. I don't know, I thought Damon had some pretty clever ideas. I think it's, you know, you let those architects and engineers loose, they can do some pretty interesting things.
So-
I'm a little less pessimistic about the ability to repurpose the building.
Be hard to move.
It might be hard to move.
But
Why?
because of where it is. I mean, there's no close place to put that house. And, you know, like when you look at building movement projects, one of the fundamental drivers is you have a place to move it to that is not far away.
I got a lot I could sell somebody, right? I mean, honestly, I could split off a parcel on my lot and park it there, and I might be a conflict of interest. You'd be surprised. There's space in town, and the village district bylaw has a campus provision, so an existing site could take that existing building. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that although it is pretty crowded in the center town, you're right. There's maybe more space than you might imagine when you take a closer look.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I want to see the Brooks House go by the wayside. I mean, I want to see the Brooks House preserved. I do. I mean, I'm just saying from a practical perspective, you know, we got one place that's not under our guidelines, but really should be saved. We got one place that's under our guidelines that really should be saved, but it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, historic and architectural value of the patio. I mean, yes, I agree with you about the functionality that's there, but if they were going to replace it with similar civic space, I mean, I walk around it all the time. Like, I'm a little nostalgic. I grew up with a lot of buildings built in that period, so I can kind of, you know, see that. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, is it worth it? And I personally just like, you know, I like old buildings, but I just, you know, I can imagine compelling alternatives being proposed that would involve removing it and doing something more valuable to the town and more valuable to the village district. For example, if somebody came to propose, put something in 5 or 6 stories with civic space on the first floor, you know, residential, that could go a long way towards meeting mixed use and high density goals for the village district that would really help drive traffic in the district, which would help foster further developments like this recent win for the village district of the new
Autism school.
yeah, going in
Yeah.
across the street there. I think we'll see the more people you can get in the center of town, the more viable things are.
Right. I agree with that.
More people in the center of town that would be living there, right? So you're not creating more traffic, you're creating foot traffic.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a trend. It was a trend in urban planning, or you know, and that was an influence on the development of the village district bylaw, basically.
Okay. Going down the rest.
Just thinking of a 5-story building with parking nightmare.
Well, you know, you look at the stuff that was built on Whalum. The parking's all under.
Underground.
A lot of the parking in the apartments is underground. So there's, yeah, it's a good valid concern. I mean, also that kind of density, depending on the density and the size, I mean, maybe you start looking at other, not no parking, but like improved.
Green space, walk paths only.
Yeah, maybe some kind of, maybe now you have enough people for ride sharing or, you know, enhanced, what do they call it? The metro service, or what you said, I don't remember what it is.
The bus service?
Yeah, like right now, I mean, they come in, they park at the senior center, and they make a couple trips to Walmart one today. With 10 times more people, you know, whatever.
Okay. I have, like I said, I've got to call into folks to get the property owner notification process set up. And then I haven't done any more work. I haven't touched base with Colin. I still need to do that, Richard, on the public brochure. And then the modification to the guidelines and certificate to alter application. I desperately want to change the certificate to alter application. So hopefully I'll have some work done by the meeting, our next meeting. is there any other comments about our old business? If not,
Yeah, I want to recognize, I had committed to working on kind of creating a draft proposal for the updating the bylaw. And I have not done that. I want to recognize I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
I would like to not give up on that. I apologize for not having it done yet. The other thing is I do need to circle back with the old church there, and the folks in that condominium, just to circle back with them on their, when we last spoke with them, they were looking at doing work on the roof, confirm that that's still going on, and see where they landed. From what I recall from our conversations, the main thing that we had was that it seems that we could offer is a recommendation to look into tax credits that would likely be there. So I'll mention that to them, that there may be historic tax credits. The other thing I was this wasn't on the agenda, so we don't have to deep dive in. At some point, I'd like to circle back. We had a good conversation in relation to this about how, if we did, maybe this would be, to keep on the future agenda, we talked about the CPA and sort of advocating for that. And we talked about how public funds, whether CPA or otherwise, there's restrictions on being able to use them on privately owned properties. I wondered, one thing I wanted to run by folks, and again, if this is off agenda and we can't talk about it, at some point I'd like to talk about other options with that, like if we were to, because I'm thinking about this relates to rewriting the bylaw and, kind of further refining the sort of, what we can do in demolition by neglect situations. I wonder if it would be permissible to spend town money if the town got a lien on the property. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
and if it would be possible.
I've seen lots of development driven that way, Nathan.
Okay.
In the Wright Brothers neighborhood, it was all that. I mean, the city of Dayton provided all kinds of money to people who lived in the Wright Brothers neighborhood. They were basically turned into one of the poorest parts of Dayton. And the end result was that those folks who were living in houses that were there when the Wright Brothers walked the streets, they couldn't afford to do it. So the town, the city of Dayton provided huge amounts of money, but they put a lien on the property. It said you got to maintain this for the next 10 years or 15 years, and that if you sell it, the lien goes with with the new property owner.
Gotcha.
So I think that the bylaws that's written right now, we really don't have any real leverage, to keep demolition by neglect from happening. I mean, it's already happening. If you look at the church building, if you look at the house down the street, I mean, those places are gems. They could be gems, for the architectural preservation district. But we have no latitude, no leverage to keep that from happening.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I'm not 100% sure we have no leverage. If we have leverage, I think it's probably punitive stuff. And I'd have to go back and talk to Adam and find out what that enforcement, it isn't just, words though. I think there are things we could do, but I don't think they're not in this bylaw. Maybe someplace, maybe in zoning bylaws, I think
but they're not in this bylaw.
Go back to just fall back upon general law.
Yeah.
Basically, you're in violation of this bylaw, and therefore you're subject to these, recourses the town has, and that's where I'm fuzzy on what they are. But what I agree is that when we should know what they are, and B, if we could do something like that, that's a lot more positive, right? You know what I'm saying? That's the lien thing. That's if it happened to your house and they're like, hey, this is messed up, it'd be really, the bylaw says you need to fix it. It would be great for the town to be fixed. Probably be okay for you. You'd probably like having your house a little bit nicer. It's probably not. I don't see that. It certainly would change the conversation, I think, in a more constructive way. Maybe someone who does have the money has just been putting off says, yeah, here, you know what, I'll just get it done, that's cool. And then maybe someone who's just done got the money, is like, hey, you want to give me money to fix up my house? Sure, do it. I'll take the lien. We're good, So I don't know, that's...
This reminds me that we need to invite Brian Gingras, the building inspector, to one of our meetings. And I think he might have the information that you're saying, how do you avoid demolition by neglect?
Right.
And I think he would be the expert that could answer any of our questions about that. And if he can't, then maybe he can tell us where to go look. I mean, I think it would be lovely if we had funds that we could offer somebody to fix up their house or their building, you know, like the church
Yeah.
building, you know, in exchange for some sort of a lane to make sure that, you know, it stays that way.
Yep.
But it isn't in, you know, bylaw 113. And,
No.
you know, so maybe it's someplace else. Maybe it's like in the town's zoning laws with regards to keeping your property, you know, in good order. So,
We're dealing with the Historical Commission. There's a property on Elm Street, I think it's 1758, Salt Box, and developer had bought the property and was going to develop it, wanted to tear the house and the post and beam barn down. And we told him that would be definitely go to demo delay, which would be a long process, that it would be tied up for him, and we urged him to either restore the property and sell it, or sell it as it was and to someone that would fix it up. So he did sell it to someone that was going to restore it. That's what we were told.
That's great.
And, but it's been sitting there deteriorating vacant for a number of years now, and a small hole in the barn roof got bigger and bigger and bigger until that collapsed in, and then the other side collapsed in, and then the gable collapsed in. So, so there's probably 4 walls there and maybe 1 gable. But the building inspector had gone over to talk to him, and he was planning on restoring the property. He ran into some difficulties after he had bought the property, but had still planned to restore it,
Right.
including the barn. But the building inspector said there's really nothing he could do other than encourage a person to do that there was no law that would apply to a property like that to force them or get them to do that restoration.
it's very difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, the historic, I think, is a little different inside the Architectural Preservation District, though,
In what way?
in that demolition by neglect is defined,
Yeah, it says including demolition by neglect.
yeah, and so you're violating the bylaw, and I think the town does have some recourse in that situation in a way that they don't in other circumstances. So, yeah, Adam was here when we worked on that. He would have a better understanding of it, but I agree that it's tool set's incomplete and less constructive. That would pair well, what you're describing, I think could pair really well with the CPA, you know what I mean? Like, and I think, I mean, we do important work, and I think that would like kind of expand our portfolio in a way that's like, seen as helpful too. We're not always like the bad guys that tell you gotta, spend your money,
I
but.
didn't understand that.
Sorry. But you get what I'm saying. So I think that could be a nice.
Well, I think that having Brian come would be good. He indicated when I had approached him about coming to one of our meetings, he indicated he was more than willing to do that. We just got to get on his schedule because this is a nighttime event for him. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and maybe he could join by Zoom, and we would have at least somebody in our Zoom meeting watching us.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, Zoom would be easy for him.
Yeah, good for him. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, the Historical Commission received a communication from a real estate agent that was representing somebody that wanted to buy the Harley House. I don't remember the number of that. It's next to the gas station, I
Yep.
think, yeah. The old gas station down here on the right. They were interested in buying the property, and they noticed that it was in the APD and they wanted to know any restrictions that might be in place for, I think, work on the porch and changing the color of the house. Just minor alterations. I had said there was no rule governing the color of their house, that they could paint it anything they wanted, and I advised them to go online and check out the APDC rules and regulations. And that was the last I heard from them.
How long ago was that?
Maybe 3 weeks.
Do you think he's looking to do something in conjunction with the property that makes up, because that parcel's eventually gonna get sold by the town, I would imagine. And that's the whole idea why they've been on a full court press to clean it up, to get it ready for.
A gas station.
Yeah.
No, next to it.
Yeah, I'm saying, do you think that the person who's interested
Gonna buy
in the
both.
Harley house is interested in?
Yeah, I don't know. Don't know.
Don't know, okay.
No,
All right.
they didn't
Anything else?
say anything about the gas station.
Anything else? Because I think that'll eventually be a parcel for development.
Yeah.
So, okay. Anything else, Richard?
That's it.
All right. Can everybody make a meeting on the 10th of October?
Yeah.
All right. And then I'm gonna try and get Brian Gingras to join us so we can talk a little bit about this. Demolition by neglect, Nathan, I read these Massachusetts Historic Preservation email, streams that we have. And demolition by neglect it's probably like a once a week, hit. So what do you do about demolition by neglect? It's so difficult. I mean, really, the only way to deal with it is you buy the property, the municipality buys the property, or someone buys the property and, gets some sort of offset for something, taxes, liens, whatever, and then we'll agree to preserve the property. But demolition by neglect is really hard.
Yeah, I think the state needs to do something about that, some type of program that could help the homeowner preserve a historic property. It's just impossible otherwise.
Yeah, it is.
People are gonna go to the cheap thing now, rip out the windows and put in vinyl windows.
I'm glad that the town is finally gonna start working on the Ritter building, because it's in sort of dire need,
Yeah.
very, very dire need for some maintenance work.
Yeah, it's great they're doing that.
Yeah, and hopefully that'll happen quickly. My one concern, I was gonna ask Chris if he had an engineer's estimate for the cost of the work, because I don't think that the money that the town's appropriated is gonna be anywhere near enough to do the work, both for the add to the entryway here, as well as all of the repairs to the Britter building itself. There's basically $227,000 available to do that much work.
It's what, a 5-year-old estimate?
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I thought was interesting is there's no numbers on the proposal that they shared with us. I'm gonna guess that Pella knows how much those windows are gonna cost. And my fear is that even with us approving the certificate to alter, the town may have to go back and get an additional appropriation to do the work. But as I always like to say, good maintenance is the heart of good historic preservation. And the sooner we get the maintenance underway, the better off we'll be. Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Is there a second?
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, we're out of here.
8:24.
Recording stopped.